Welcome to the Mr. R Show, presented by the MRR Institute. This podcast is designed specifically for tax professionals looking to scale and modernize their practice by maximizing revenue through resources. Join us as we explore expert strategies, innovative tools, and actionable advice to help you navigate the evolving landscape of the tax industry. Whether you're aiming to grow your business or enhance your client experience, you're in the right place. Now, let's get to the show and transform your practice together.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Mr. R Show here, brought to you, edited, produced, and promoted by the MRR Institute. So in this episode specifically, as you can see in the title and the show notes, we are going to be discussing what it means to find a niche, explore that, and grow and scale that, or I should say scale, not grow, because we did a podcast on that way back in the day. But as always, the smartest guy in the room, until we bring out a guest, Chris Picaro. What's happening, buddy?
When we bring on a guest, I get demoted. But John, you're smart in your own right, just not a tax professional. Maybe that's a good thing. Welcome back, everyone, to the Mr. R Show. We're so excited to have you with us. Remember, we can get a continuing education credit or CPE through EarMark. And it's always nice to have a special guest, so I don't have to talk to John for 50 minutes to an hour. So that's a bonus.
That's the best part. That's a whole nother CPE in life, if anybody can listen to me and Chris talk for an hour. So,
well, and if you're listening to this and you think, gosh, this isn't very professional, John and I do another podcast that's weekly called Teaching Tax Flow. It's for the taxpayer, not necessarily the tax professional. And we've known each other for over 20 years. But speaking of knowing people, I'm really excited to have our guest on this month. And we met, I want to say a few years ago, 2-3 years ago at Taxposium in San Antonio, Texas, right?
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. Yeah, we met under some harsh circumstances. That was the whole Microsoft going down and plane flights canceling everywhere kind of deal.
Yes, and you kind of have, I hate to say it, Craig, but you kind of have a tough history with getting to conferences. Logistically.
That's true.
Did you have issues getting to Orlando, or am I?
Well, so yeah, I was getting those mixed up. Yeah, San Antonio, I mean, that one was just kind of naturally rough. The Orlando one was the one that was absolutely catastrophic. Tough getting down there, had to drive the middle of the night to get to Orlando, missed half the first day, and then had to do an emergency landing in Memphis on my way back where the mask came down in my plane. I was like, this was a trip I don't want to remember.
That was a rough one. But then we got to reconnect in Vegas in 2025, summer 2025. Had a great time. And yeah, we're just excited to have you. You know, Greg is a practitioner based out of Arkansas. We have gotten to know him well, became friends. He's also in our peer-to-peer mastermind group. And ironically, we always talk about collaboration over competition. His niche, and what we're talking about today is that movement towards niching. But his niche is in real estate, which is my firm's niche. But we're very, very friendly with it, and we always, exchange ideas and that sort of thing. So, Greg, Seay, thank you for joining the Mr. R podcast, Mr. R show, rather. How are you doing, though?
Yeah, I'm doing good. And, here we're recording now into September, starting to feel the anxiety of the extension deadline of things, as most other tax professionals are probably doing. I do have a little bit of a off-ramp with it. We have some disaster relief stuff, so I've got till the end of October to get some things done. But still, it's always a push. It's always a grind.
Right. Well, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, as far as where your practice is located, maybe some personal facts, also how you got into firm ownership?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so some things with me really factual based. I mean, I started my firm back in 2016, and that was kind of same time, like most people do. I would say most practitioners, at least nowadays, you see them starting off on the side. Hey, I'm just going to have a few friends and family clients. I look at it, when you come to rating clients, I call it your A, your B, and your F clients, and your F clients are your friends and family. I had a lot of F clients in the beginning. Now I've since kind of built out some of these relationships over time as I've kind of specialized in some things. But started it off just kind of on the side, and then really back in late 2021, 2022 was really kind of came to a fulcrum decision point and needed to say, okay, I've grown enough on my firm on, okay, does it look right for me to take the plunge and go full time into it? Or do I cut it off and stick with my full time job, and ultimately landed on firm ownership piece to it. But then even at that point, it was just me. I went out on my own solo in there. But I had the itch, my prior life, I worked with a great team. I loved working with people and having folks that are around me that I could work with and talk with day in, day out. When I went solo, I just built a little 10 by 10 home office in my backyard. And so it was just my hideaway back there. And so didn't really get to have the chance to be around a lot of folks. I had some of those elderly clients that I go and do house calls for, whatnot, but enjoyed being around people, wanted to have some staff. So really thought about, all right, what's it look like to purchase a firm at this point? And that was in early 2023. And by May of 2023, I was starting the conversation with purchasing another firm here in Arkansas. And by November of 2023, that's when everything kind of consummated. I'd acquired it, and we just had a couple of months to get, technology and stuff turned around before the busy season came. But as far as where I'm located in Arkansas, I'm in the Northwest Arkansas area. I would call it home of Walmart, home of Tyson, JB Hunt. A lot of big Fortune 100 companies in here, probably maybe Fortune 50 in some of those. But when it comes to the real estate side, really what I looked at it as when I first started out, I was like most people, generalist. I'll take any client that I can get just so I can generate some income, get myself, my feet wet, get my feet underneath me. And then as time went on, I really wanted to lean into the tax planning, tax strategy side to it. When it comes to just the compliance stuff, you hear some of those cliches of like, it's just we're just putting numbers in boxes if we're just doing tax preparation. Like what people are really wanting is a peek into the future. What's coming on the horizon? What's going to be by next April 15th or April 15th, 2 years from now, being able to do that. And most of the clients that I had those planning opportunities for were folks that dealt with real estate in there. And so naturally kind of had some magnetism towards that, I guess you'd say. And also just turns out too, with folks with real estate, there's some really massive planning opportunities that you can deal with. Whether it's just a one-time silver bullet kind of deal with cost segregation, bonus depreciation, which we've been lucky to get back again here recently, or it can be an ongoing thing each year for folks that are really kind of build out their portfolio.
And so when did you make the decision to focus? And we say niche, but I actually like the term segment as well. Someone could be a community-based taxpayer, which I want to kind of dive into that in a moment, because when we talk about community-based tax professional, meaning you primarily service a certain community, which in a way is a segment. There could be certain environmental things going on just with the business climate. In a local area might be very focused on some seasonality, or maybe there's a certain industry there. When did you move that focus into real estate, and what % of your clients live in the community that you work in?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's that as far as what percentage of clients that needle has shifted quite a bit since I had acquired this firm. When I was first going out on my own and being solo, probably about half of my clients ended up being something like that. But when I had acquired this firm, I 10x'd my client base overnight on there. And it was more so, there are some other factors involved in as far as buying a firm. But when you talk about the segment too, Northwest Arkansas, I'll call it the Northwest Arkansas metro area, there's a lot of really good real estate opportunities and a lot of good potential clients too that want to get into that, especially when you get into Walmart executives, JB Hunt executives, Tyson executives, that they've got very high income, high net wealth, and they want to get into some passive investing things, or maybe even some active investing. There's some of them get a wild hair and want to do some short-term rental type stuff and manage it on their own. But that needle went way down whenever I had acquired this firm, because where I'm specifically at least my office it's just outside kind of the metro area of Northwest Arkansas. And it's a lot more farmer based, I would say. So I inherited a lot of farmer type clients, and it was a different type of firm too. So there's been a lot of learning experiences through this too, as far as niching down. There's so many things you can niche down to as well. I think they were more so of, hey, we work with a lot of the farmer type folks that love to bring the shoe boxes, love to just deal with paper. I was the other end of the spectrum. So there's been some significant culture change over time with it too. So I had a pretty good chunk of clients that were in that community segment that I liked of real estate that then shifted down. And I also too, just for the sake of transition, when I had acquired this firm, took on their name. So I set aside the name of my business at that point just to not introduce a whole bunch of change, just for client attrition type purposes. So kind of had to end up putting that niche on hold for a little bit, just for the sake of transition. But as far as timeline now, where we've really started to double down or triple down onto, we're getting into specialized segment or what kind of community we're wanting to get into. We really pulled the trigger on that probably about 4 months ago on it, where we've since retransitioned our name, rebranded ourselves back to my Cornerstone CPA. We've changed things with our website. What's our branding look like online? So it's not just our firm name. That's what we have for our URL. We're very specific with what we do as far as an online presence in there with our website URL. And so that way, when people are trying to find us online, we're getting very digital with things. When they're searching for us, when they find us, they know exactly what they're looking at. It's not just, hey, I found a general CPA, somebody that can help me. It's, no, I found somebody that specializes in working with real estate types of transactions or types of investing to it. So it's kind of a natural filter there.
And that's great, because we talk about that even in our mastermind group a little bit, talked about that at some conferences. Our domain, our URL is realestatecpa.guru. So it tells you exactly what we do. What is the URL that I know a bunch of tax pros aren't going to go submit inquiries there, but what are you using?
So I took one, when the AICPA came out with the whole .cpa domains recently, I ended up taking a 3-letter domain. Lucky enough to find it. It's just rei.cpa. Yeah. So very short and sweet, to the point. And if people that are involved in real estate, they know exactly what that means. People that aren't, they ask the question, what's REI stand for? And because it's an opportunity to kind of explain that a little bit.
It's a great domain. And I think John's our VP of marketing here he's got a marketing agency, but he helps us out with our marketing. And we definitely were looking at that CPA domain name, and we wanted to get REI, but I know you must have reserved it quite a bit ago, and that was good to scoop it up.
I got it late last year, actually. So I've been eyeballing it, just never pulled the trigger on it. So.
And Greg, you're lucky you got it, and we still like you, because that's a good one. Usually I take it very personal when people get better domains than me on some things. So
I figured I found a diamond in the rough by snagging that one.
That's a great one.
Well, let's talk. I'm going to put the REI, or the real estate investing, on ice just for a second, because you've kind of got two things going on. You're building out this segment and this niche that you have a passion for, but you also 10x your client base. Doesn't mean you 10x your revenue, but you at least 10x your client base. Can you give us a feel of what type of, what your, but how many people are on your team now as you moved into that transition, buying that larger firm? And then also, what are some of the things that you did that worked as far as showing value that you have and then your niche, and versus making sure that the team feels empowered to work with those new clients? Because a lot of times a client in a firm that is acquired wants to talk only to that firm owner, and they think that they're getting shortchanged if they don't. And there's a fine line there.
Yep, very much so. some of my background is working in nonprofits, specifically at churches. So some of the correlation I see here, especially with small firm owners, how that correlates to what I've seen historically with churches, personality driven churches where people develop a relationship with who's the lead pastor there. And that's the same case when it comes to small firm ownership is they want to attach that relationship to the firm owner on it. And I did deal with that. I dealt with that. So the first year and a half that I had owned the firm that I had bought, I kept the prior owners with me. So I contracted them working with me. And I really more or less just kind of introduced myself as a new equity owner rather than, hey, here's the new owner and the prior owners are moving on. I just kind of brought myself in and kind of from an PR standpoint, more or less like, hey, here's a new partner that's involved. And that gave me a chance we started redirecting a lot of the relationships over to me so I can get acquainted, get to know folks. But what the kind of running joke that I had was, if I see them and meet with them a few times, hopefully they'll find out I'm not a jerk and they'll want to keep working with me. Yeah, on there. But I did deal with a lot of those things where people would call in and ask for the prior firm owner, say, hey, are they there? And I said, no, they're not here today. Is there something I can help you with? And they would follow up and say, oh, we'll call back when he's back in on there. And so it's hard to transition that relationship. Now I think there's a couple phases to that, especially whenever you're buying a firm, like you do want to redirect those relationships. But ultimately, the phase you want to get to is how do I redirect the relationship from being the client with the firm owner myself to having the client value the relationship with the service that we provide.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big pain. And I've never, in doing this for many years, I've never heard someone explain it like that. And I love it. So I might steal that because I kind of speak about I screwed up the first 10 years of running my practice and I'm into 22, coming up on 23 years, where I ran the practice or people ran the practice instead of processes are running the practice and people run the processes. But I like that, just that mentality that a client needs to do business with a firm due to the value received, not necessarily because Greg is there or Joe is there or Jane is there.
That's exactly right. Yep. And it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to do. And it's actually one of the questions I had asked at Taxposium this last year too. I think I was asking on one of the panels about there was like, how do you kind of redirect that relationship away from just being a bottleneck at the firm owner level to now your entire team's involved and it's just a bottleneck from the firm's perspective. Like how much can our entire staff handle there? And it's a matter really of kind of having your processes and your services really outlined so that the client understands what they're getting and who they're working with. And it's not just a relationship piece. They understand the service that you're doing and the value that you're providing in that service versus just, the conversation with the firm owner.
You nailed it. And that's the key, when you're thinking about, for instance, let's say you are working with the real estate clients, but you have a client that comes in, maybe they're a tax preparation only client, if that's something you guys offer. I mean, we are, as membership-based subscription model. We do have 50 opportunities now to help people with a tax prep only. And typically that's going to be if we worked with them on an a la carte tax plan. But, in some circumstances, or it could be just unique situations where but the point is, how do I make sure that they realize my role is tax planning and strategy? I'm not their tax preparer. And like you said, I think clearly defining roles within your organization. So when we have a foundational entity package, like that package is there for people that own an S corp or a partnership return with up to 5 partners. That's just what we call it. We call that package. That package is managed by, I'm just making a name, Joe. So by default, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, oh, congrats, welcome to the firm. We're excited to have you in our foundational package. And, Joe is the package manager for this package. Then they don't feel like they're dished off. And I think that's, that's important because I think as practitioners, we kind of are like everything from sweeping the floors to doing all these executive decisions and having that, what are some of the things that you've has like, what's that one thing that's worked the best? And then what are two, three things that were like, okay, if I ever do it again, if you buy another practice again, you would change?
Yeah. Well, I think in hindsight, I think the way the market is right now, and you've mentioned it, and I think in some previous podcasts that you've done, just as far as the state of the industry with CPAs retiring and not as much CPA candidates coming out of college, like the opportunity to buy a firm may not be as valuable as just growing one on your own organically.
Yes.
In hindsight, I may have done things a little bit differently. But to your point, as far as going back to redirecting the relationship away from the firm owner, I think it all starts with your onboarding process on there, where I what I at least regardless of I would say when you're still a small firm, my my staff size right now, I've got myself and I've got 4 team members that work with me. It's one other CPA besides myself. I've got a bookkeeper, an admin assistant, and then a project and communications manager in there. What I've learned, I'm still the face of the business right now, and I'm the one that's having that initial interaction when one is interested in finding out more about our service on there. But then when it comes to what's the seriousness level of this and getting them onboarded, now it's a matter of, all right, we need to get you introduced to the team. Like, I'm not going to be the only person that's going to be providing you service here. I need to get you introduced to the team, it's a matter of building that rapport right there on the front end. I think if you don't do that in the very beginning, then you're just deepening that relationship with yourself uh, in there. And it's hard to dig yourself out of that because from the get-go, they just see you, but they don't see your team. So I think if you miss the bar on getting them introduced on that very front end, bite the bullet and go ahead and get them introduced as soon as you can, because that's what it's going to take. It's a behavioral change. Behavior is the hardest thing to change, at least with our clients on it. Like they understand tax laws change all the time, and at least we tell them the tax laws change all the time. They may not understand that, but we change our tech stack all the time. I, we got a new portal every year. They're used to change, so why not change it up and get them introduced to some new people on your staff, and so that way they can start developing those relationships.
Well, you just said something that I wrote down, and I want to. You might not even realize you said this, but it's actually very impactful. When I was a lot younger, someone told me, having a daughter, we have 2 sons and a daughter. My daughter's 15 now, and they said, if you want to, basically, your daughter's going to model in general when she's looking for a spouse or a significant other, how you treat your wife or your significant other. That's the modeling she's looking for. And that could be very turbulent. That could be very harmonious. You could have agree to disagree. You could, just whatever what you're showing your children, your relationship with your spouse or your significant other is what she's going to gravitate to and look for. And that's why a lot of times family history repeats itself. Not all the time, but I just always thought about that. And I'm looking at this as, Greg, if I came to you, I met with you and I'm a potential client. This is exactly what you phrased. You mentioned myself and my 4 team members that work with me. Right there, I'm thinking, I like this team. Greg's a team player. He trusts his people. So let's take that. I have myself and my 4 team members that work with me versus I'm Greg. I own the CPA firm. I've got 4 employees that work for me. All of a sudden, when I hear that and I'm a potential client, I'm thinking that they're lesser than you on this team. And we don't use that employee. I hate the term employees. We use team members. We always say, it's funny, even I'll go to like a family, thank goodness my family doesn't listen to this, but I'll go to a family reunion in my green. How many people are working for you now? I'm like, none. they work with me, even though my aunt would never. It's just that mentality of we truly work together. And I love that about you. I think that's very admirable. So
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, the mindset too. I mean, I think the way you carry yourself out, a lot of things bleed over. Your relationships with your team bleeds
mhm.
out into the relationships with your clients and vice versa on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
I've seen it personally in some culture changes that have happened over time with prior ownership and what's the relationship with the client look like between the firm owner and the client. And that bleeds over into bad relationship with your staff and your
right.
team members too.
Well, staff can undermine you. I mean, it could be a whole thing. Just like if if there are two parents that are feuding, even if they're not together in a relationship anymore, children understand and they will get between you and wedge and get their way. And that's something, I mean, not to get proud, like I'm proud of my wife and I that we've been able to try to set an example. I had a great example with my parents. My wife's parents set a great example for us. Yeah, we all know there's a lot of things we disagree about, but you don't throw people you don't throw them under the bus. You don't throw your team members. And you take those shots as a firm owner. If you're listening and watching, you've got to take those shots for your team. When
Yep.
you're an administrative person accidentally deletes their client portal or something, you've got to take the responsibility.
Yep. Yeah. I like that. I've used the phrase for a while. Nothing is unable to be fixed unless it's an ethical concern.
Uh-huh.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Anything's fixable unless it's an ethical violation kind of thing.
Yeah. And a communication solves all problems. I mean, that goes in any relationship. So
Right.
I agree. Well, okay, let's talk about the REI focus. Now that you nabbed REI.CPA, I'm thinking you're gonna like a piece of real estate, you go flip it. But I absolutely love that. Are you when you're getting new leads, so, like, I'll get to be transparent, we have another domain called 2025.tax. So if we
Mm.
happen to get a lead that's not real estate related, we don't direct them to our real estate CPA.guru necessarily. When
Mhm.
we are only focused on real estate, I hate to say this, but or if we have a lead that we don't think is gonna be a good fit no matter what, and they're not in real estate, I might direct them to real
Yeah.
estate CPA.guru just to deter them.
Yeah.
Um, but how are you, what other things are you doing? Well, let me ask this question. When you have leads coming in, because you have these legacy clients that aren't necessarily real estate focused, how are you
Mhm.
processing those leads? And are you only focused on REI clients moving forward or primarily?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a few layers to this too. But when it came to the acquisition, 10xing your clients overnight, I went from one set of issues with a small set of clients to a different set of issues with a large set of clients. And fortunately, when I had the large set of clients, it allowed me to make some really easy decisions on who's not a good fit for me to work with on there. There was a lot of fat that I could trim off with it. And it's nothing personal there. It's just a matter of what's the vision that I have for this type of firm that I'm wanting to build into it. So I'm fortunate enough right now where I've still got plenty of clients that can keep things going operationally, but I can be extremely picky with who do I want to work with. And so with this rebranding that we did just a few months ago, we've gone to be exclusively the only folks that we're bringing on are the real estate types of folks in that. And it's nice because not only with having the REI CPA domain, like that's a natural filter in and of itself, but even the questionnaire as far as having the client fill out an application saying that they want to become a client, there are very specific real estate types of questions that are in there that if they are not a real estate type of client, they're just going to say this isn't for me on there. And that saved me time because time's been the most valuable thing for me to be able to try to conserve is that now I'm not dealing with, you know, uh, John and Jill off the street that say, "Hey, are you taking on new clients?" I can just direct them there and they kind of self filter themselves out on it.
We are, and no, and that's same with us. We have created on the real estate side a certain avatar. So there's some deviation, but ultimately we're looking for people that are in real estate and not only in real estate, but continuing the real estate activity. If do they want to build their portfolio? Are they selling? Are they doing things that they need us? Are they making moves? And I like that because a lot of times when people want to go niche down or they want to get into a segment, they feel like, I don't want to say burden, but almost hand tied by the current clients. And I always say, well, just draw a line in the sand, and moving forward, you're focusing on this. And for those legacy clients, guess what? You got something that's not on the menu anymore. Enjoy it, eat it. But a new person can't come in the restaurant and demand, like, I demand this salmon platter. We don't have it anymore. Sorry, they bought it. So
Yeah. Well, it goes back to some of the principles there of, if you're starting out and you're wanting to niche, but you still have a revenue need, more or less, like if you're saying no to a lot of folks, then you may not be, you know, financially taken care of. I know that's,
right.
CPAs, accountants, I think are naturally inclined towards that fear of not having enough revenue to be able to cover things.
Right.
But it goes back to that old saying of, if I'm saying yes to this, that means I'm saying no to something else.
Yeah.
So if I'm saying yes to a bad client, that means I'm saying no to potentially good client on there.
Right. You've got to say no to say yes. That's what we say all the time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about building out this real estate niche. We'll talk about the client side, but I know that you're making efforts in to build out what we call your COIs. Like we talked about that at Taxposium, as far as how do you, date your clients. Now, you might not want to quote unquote date your clients that aren't real estate investors. You want to date your clients that are real estate investors, because they're going to send you more real estate investors. But how do you nurture your centers of influence? Who are your centers of influence that are referring you the best clients, other than maybe your current client, the real estate clients? And how are you connecting with them? How are you keeping in top of mind with them?
Yeah. Well, a couple things come top of mind. One was just kind of for the physical networking piece. For my first few years when I had started my firm, I joined one of those, I would say, large national networking organizations, BNI. And so you get,
Oh, throw them under the bus. We don't care.
I mean, I did get a handful of few good referrals, but
Right.
when you're in a room of business owners, you're going to be getting probably more business owner type referrals, not necessarily real estate ones on there. And so I will admit, I got referral after referral, but it was a lot of those, not a right fit, not a right fit, not a right fit. And so again, going back to that, where's my time being allocated to? My time's being spent telling people no, um, or getting to know people and then figuring out, no, it's not a good fit. And so it was a lot of lost time in that. So what I've since done is moved out of the BNI networking and gotten into some local community real estate groups instead. So there's a group here called REI at NWA, which they do things really well. I like the way they set them up, where you kind of hit 3 different markets with them. Every once a month they have a developer builder type of meeting that they do. Once a month, they'll do an all membership meeting. And then once a month, they'll do what they call a rookie nook. People that are just brand new and getting into investing, they do it. So you kind of got 3 different markets that you're working through just with one networking organization.
Right.
And then you got even some more specialized things that I've been a part of, where it's commercial real estate meetups on there. So historically, I kind of really leaned just into the residential side, but now I've moved more so into the commercial side of things too. As I've gained clients that have been dealing with that and getting more acquainted with it. And then you have some private groups, especially with some of these larger organizations, where you get an organization like Walmart. They've got tons and tons of employees. They have their own clubs that they do. And so you have Walmart Real Estate Investing Club that you can get involved in there. And then probably the last thing, as far as finding some circles of influence, this really comes down to like knowing your audience. When it comes to real estate investors, a lot of them relate to Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad on there. You're making posts that are relatable to them, mentioning that book, the principles that are involved in there. They kind of naturally magnetize themselves to you. It's like, hey, he reads the same kind of material that I do on that. And so there's some rapport that's naturally built in that. And I've gotten a lot of referrals just from things like that.
Yeah, you nailed it. I did the same thing quite a bit because I actually love real estate, and I just going to these meetups and some of these groups, you just don't, you don't even have to talk about being a CPA. You just show up and be a member. Eventually they'll probably, once no one knows what you do, they might ask you to be the monthly presenter. All of a sudden,
That happened with me.
okay, yeah,
That
tell us about that.
Yeah, the first meeting the I think it was like noon that day, the first meeting I was gonna go to, I joined the group. I showed up, told him my name. The president of the organization is like, "Oh, I've been meaning to call you. Like, I saw that you're a CPA. Like, we really need somebody in here. We've not ever had a CPA in our group. Like, it's always just been investors, brokers, people trying to sell deals to one another. They're like, we've never had a CPA involved." So after I had kind of presented myself and introduced myself, literally that evening, it's like swarm, everybody in the group comes to us like, "Hey, I like that you are real estate focused on it. Like, I live and breathe this stuff, and it's nice to know somebody who's specializing in that in there." And it turns out too, at the end of the meeting, it turns out, all right, a month from now I'm the next speaker for the next month's meeting. Love it.
So what did you speak on? Did you do like top
We
5 REI tax strategy
Yeah,
or
we
something?
did. So I kind of co-led a speaking engagement. So another lady that I was involved in with BNI, she's an attorney that focuses on real estate as well. We co-led, pros and cons, S corporations. What's it mean to be an LLC? Well, it's the difference between tax purposes of LLC versus legal purposes of LLC. There was a lot of questions that came out of that presentation.
Oh yeah, it's not. I mean, that's like printing the dollars when you're in that. Yeah, if you're if you're a CPA, enrolled agent, tax professional, if you ever want to feel like the prettiest girl in school, show up at a real estate meetup or whatever. I mean, you could be honestly, it could be any industry you have interest in. Like let's say you um I don't know. Let's say you love the dairy business and you show up at their trade association and just talk milk or something. Yeah, who knows?
You can go the Jason Stats route, and I specialize in beekeeping. I
Right.
think.
You could be no pun at that be but that's the thing is you're gonna be that go-to person and they're gonna understand your tone, your message, and it's just yeah, I really enjoy it. And the other thing, if you're as you're listening, as tax professionals are listening, presenting to non-tax industry groups is so much easier than presenting to peers because quite frankly, you might slip and say, you know, bonus depreciation is at 80% and it was really 100. You're not maliciously saying anything bad, but you don't have 20 people trying to fact check you on tax law code.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, pressure's really off in those industry type meetings versus peer tax professionals.
and you nailed another thing. Once it's funny. I was talking to a couple other tax pros, and I'm like, there's something. I'm sure you feel the same way. Once you get into a conversation with um, a potential client about real estate, and you use some buzzwords
Mm.
like, yeah, how's that cash on cash, doing, or the positive of the cost segregation study is you're gonna get a larger tax refund that'll reduce kind of reclaim some of your down payment and your cash on cash returns better, or you know
Oh, yeah.
and even though, like, as you're speaking to them, or I mean, one of my little hacks is like, if I see a rental property, how long have you had that rental property? Okay, did you buy it turnkey? Did you burr it? Did you do that?
Mm.
Like, an accountant just said burr method, and they're like, holy moly,
What?
you know what
Yep.
that is? And it's just like, wow.
And Chris, to back that up, right? Like I've been to a number of these conferences with you, and it is exactly that. Like you'll be saying things that just come off natural, to you and everybody in your practice. But then it's so funny sitting there watching it. They do like perk up, and then I think it might take like one or two things, and then they go, "You just get it, like you understand us." That's funny because they always refer to it as us, like you understand this whole group of people more than they expected.
Right, right.
It's awesome to see that.
Mhm.
Well, and it's cool, Greg, for you because you go in with the hat of you do, of real estate investing and just kind of understanding, getting behind the hood, or under the hood rather. So John realized how much of a car guy I am, right? Behind the hood.
Yeah.
Uh, but at least
Oh,
John knows what depreciation recapture is. That's another story from our other podcast. I can't even say under the hood properly.
It's
But
all good. I collect my trophies over here when I impress Chris, and there's a couple of them. That's it.
I'm impressed. So and I love that you're telling people, I'm sorry, exactly what you do with your domain, and you're asking questions that is automatically kind of weeding them out. Um, and you don't know how many people may have looked at the questionnaire and said, yeah, I'm probably not where this firm's at, as far as they're not a bad client. They're just not a good fit for you guys. They don't
That's
meet
right.
your
Yeah.
formula.
Yeah. And there's there's nothing personal with it. It's just professional fit,
Mhm.
more or less. Yeah.
And you talk about that language, just talking that real estate, doing the real estate language. I want to touch kind of last segment here about onboarding. You mentioned that, as far as, I think that I lived too many years when I first started the practice. You and John were in diapers probably. About, like, of course, John wore diapers till he was about 25, but that's another episode. But
I don't even want to know what people are thinking when you said that one, but
no,
we'll just
I'm
let it
teasing.
go.
After John, you should say, well, John, I'll be in diapers before you are. When
Yeah,
I'm
you'll be
older.
back in them sooner than me.
Yeah, I'm getting close. Anyway, the onboarding, having a process is so important, because as CPAs, tax professionals, EAs, we're like, feels good to land that client. Like, that's my habit. But then the work really starts. Then, oh my gosh, how do we get this person into our system? Because you've got to set the tone. This is how we do business. And if we're doing business the way we know how to, we can help you more. Not give me, what are some of the best practices from onboarding perspective that you use? What are some of the things that you've failed forward and learned on?
Yeah. Well, and kind of to preface it too, is like you talk about these first impressions of things. I think really, as a firm owner, you get two first impressions.
Okay.
One's your very first impression on when does a first client initially learn about you or talk with you. Then I would say now the next first impression is getting that client associated and impressed by your staff and the service that you provide in there. So it comes down to the first impression with your onboarding, because it's like you said, it sets the tone for the rest of things. If it's haphazard of, hey, we're just going to do a quick call, I'm going to ask you some questions, and then, all right, now I'm going to send you a list of some information, and all right, now I've got that. Now I've got more questions. All right. And that's just a constant follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. They're going to be like, do they know what they're asking for? Kind of thing. And so it's just a matter of, I would say, at least in the real estate side of things, I want to get as much information about their portfolio as I can, and kind of pick their brain as far as what's their vision of things. So when we're talking about meeting with somebody for the advisory side or tax planning piece, like, you got to know further down the road, what are you planning with things. So at least when it comes to best practices that I've learned, what I've really liked, especially, like, we're starting to see some more firms kind of stick with technology now versus kind of jumping ship year to year. The technology is getting better for these practice management systems, where they really can be somewhat all in one in there, whether it's to secure communication, your billing, your document sharing, chat availability, um, document requests, organizers, all that can be built into one. There's several practice management firms out there that do that. It's nice to be able to send a client to one place instead of saying, all right, during your onboarding, I'm going to get you a login for this. I'm going to get you a login for this. Make sure you remember all your passwords. Having a single platform for them to get into, what I've seen has been very appreciative on the client side of, like, hey, it's really nice for me to just have one place that I need to go, and you got a mobile app more or less associated with it. But at least having your core set of questions that, all right, here's the bare minimum that I know that I need for every single onboarding client on there. Getting that out there. Then at least the way I handle it is, I think it's probably a buzzword in our industry, discovery. You have a discovery session or a discovery meeting. It's like, okay, this may be a little bit more open-ended. I'm going to kind of prod you with some questions based on what you've provided me already. And that's going to kind of open the door on what's the next step look like in there. But when it comes to what have I failed over before, I when I talked about follow up, I've done that plenty of times as I've grown on there. Especially if I get somebody maybe I'm super excited about to have as a client and I want to take lead on that relationship, I get ahead of myself on there and I maybe skip some steps. But it's a matter of having the process of here's step 1, step 2, step 3, sticking with the process. Because when you deviate from it, now it kind of leads to your staff, your team. Like they see you deviating from the process, they may deviate from the process.
Yeah, the process has to win, right? Because if you shortcut, every time I shortcut something in my practice, I muck it up, and that includes my own. I've kind of shortcut the filing of some of my own entity returns, some of my real estate holding LLCs, and it's like, this. It's been a few years, but I've had a friend of mine. Hey man, where's my LLC from XLL, or where's my K1? Like, dude, I did that. I didn't put it through our process. Our administrative team didn't load the K1 in the person's portal, and I screwed it up because I
Yeah.
deviated. You mentioned something really interesting, because when you say you get that first impression, I've always felt like you have one time to show your value to a client, which is the quote. Of course, that's different than your first impression. What I like about your first impression now, especially in the REI space, is typically they're going to be looking at your website. I mean, they might meet you, but they're going to look at the website and say, there's nothing. I mean, little practice hack if you're just getting started in your practice. Just my advice would be probably not use a Gmail, Hotmail, or AOL email address. That just, when I see someone, it could be a plumber, like at least have have Joe at joesplumbing.com, something, not Joe Plumber at Gmail, because it just makes me feel,
Spend the $25 to get the domain.
right. It alleviates the value, the value is gone. And, so when people go to your website, and also, have some type of landing page, or at least say it's under construction. But if people have, when I look at your landing page, your website, it's very clean. And then I did you have that area where it says become a client. The questions are very I mean, I'm reading through all the questions and I can see exactly what you're looking for because I'm in this space. But as a real estate investor, they're very disarming. When I don't feel, they're just
Poked and
disarming.
prodded. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I really, and what I like that you're asking is when we talk about building this niche out, is you're asking the prospective client what they think they need. That doesn't mean that's what they really need, but you're basically taking their temperature and saying, do you need our monthly payroll, accounting and payroll? Do you just want tax advisory? What do you think you need? I mean, how many times have we gone to the doctor and, for a checkup, oh man, my elbow's kind of sore, and then also, something's going on with my ear or something, something in passing. And then they realize you got your ear is a bigger problem than your elbow. I'm just making that up. But, and I think
That's a good point. Like when it comes to value, once being able to meet and service somebody's wants always provides more value than somebody's needs on there. Because they feel the pain with it. It's like, I'm wanting help with this versus I just need help with it. Like it's a pain point. I need to get this done. It's more commoditized, more or less. I got to do this every year. But what I'm really looking for is some help with this. And when you can meet that want, there's inherent value inside of that.
Right. I mean, I think you're doing a great job. So onboarding now, do you set up like an onboarding meeting with the client and, at this point they're a client, and are you accepting people with maybe some back work, and how do you kind of manage those workflows?
Yeah, there's just a couple of folks I can count on one hand, the folks that I've got with back work needed. But again, it kind of goes down to there's some forethought into taking on somebody with back work. It's like if there's a history there of not being great at the compliance side or even the planning side to it, are they going to continue to be poor in that respect? And so if you find somebody that's, they are up to date, they're on top of things, they kind of understand what you're trying to provide for them with it, the relationship just is that much better more or less. I got lots of clients that, they want to just be the ones that they can just say, hey, I want to hand it off to you and you do 100% control. Well, it can't fully be that. I can't be your adult. I can't be a guardian for you in some respects on this. It's a relationship. I go back to the therapy kind of things. It was like, I can't care more about your tax situation than you care about your tax situation. Where I think we fall into that more often too, where we care about it way more than our clients, and that keeps us up at night and gives us anxiety and ulcers and all that stuff. Um, but it's just a matter of, all right, how can I kind of vet these clients on the front end to see, are they going to be ones that is going to be good to work with? Like, or are they going to be a thorn in the side and just kind of a repeat offender with things?
And where you it's kind of we wrap this up as looking forward. If you had to say a year from right now, what would you like your revenue percentage to be? REI clients versus non REI clients, and client percentage. Because I mean, you could have 10% of your clients make up 50% of your revenue because have you thought just in roundabout kind of where your head goes? Obviously, you've paused on new clients if they're not an REI, but again, you've got 14 members that you're responsible for their livelihood. And you can't just, I mean, you could, but you've got to also maintain those relationships to have a cash flow there to make sure that uh their financial needs are met.
Well, I'll say, with where I'm at right now, like I've I've spent this last year and a half to 2 years being the opposite of growth mode of things. I've been really contracting with things because when I 10X'd clients, there was a need for me to contract because, I mean, I think I'm not alone in this where, somebody's a brand new firm owner, or they've got a whole bunch of clients. They get into busy season and they are an absentee father, absentee husband, um, just an absentee person altogether. Like they live and breathe at work. And I dealt with that these last 2 years whenever I had so many clients that I was dealing with. And so I'm still kind of in that contraction mode, but it's a matter of, all right, now when I do get to growing again, I think you talked about scaling versus growing on it. I look at it as I want to have healthy growth over growth on there, on it. And so it's a matter of kind of learning some of your capacity things. It's like, I need to give myself some time to decompress and not just be so busy where it's a year round tax season. Um, but then to kind of to your point, as far as what do those percentages look like? I don't think I'm going to get us into a point where, there's a lot of 80/20 rules where 20% your clients are 80% of your revenue. I think it's going to be pretty well, I would say kind of peanut butter spread more or less.
Ooh, I like
Uh,
peanut butter.
right.
One of my weaknesses.
Cause I'm starting to get into that subscription model thing too, where at a bare minimum, there's a membership piece where just, there's a fee for access to us. And so getting to something like that can really lessen the number of clients that's needed, allows me to provide more value to those clients. Um, and it just makes me better at what I do because I'm not so spread thin. Whether that's, if you're not niching down, you've got to be a generalist and know a gigantic book of tax code, versus just, a small section of it that you got to be involved with, in there. So I think it'd be a kind of a fairly well spread on there. Maybe something like 60/40 as far as, individual clients. A lot of these investors deal with things in their own personal portfolios. They may not get into the point of having S corps or partnerships, in there, but you may have 40% of them that do have operating companies where they're managing real estate and run that through an S corporation, things like that.
When I know John's got, we're unfortunately out of time here, but I want to say another compliment. I know on your tax advisory services on your website, again, it's rei.ca. Couple of things. I mean, what you're doing might seem subtle, but you're nailing it, right? I love clearly identifying the prices of your packages. We're a very big advocate of get the price discussion out as quickly as possible. The other thing as I'm looking, as I reviewed your website, and again, I got a little cheat code because we're in the same mastermind group. We know each other pretty well over the last couple of years. You're using acronym. So instead of you use the term doors, anyone that works in real estate knows that's how people speak about. They don't talk about I've got 2 rental properties. If they've got a duplex, that's 2 doors. So I like that you use the term doors. Just little subtle things, like you said, that terminology makes those prospective clients say, okay, this guy and his team understand me.
Yeah, it makes just them a little bit more comfortable of addressing you or making a touch point with you.
And Greg, you just won Chris over when you said peanut butter. Let's be honest. That was
I did
that
right
was a
there.
win there.
Yeah.
But we will let you off the hook with this one here. I just want to wrap with one comment here as well. There's so many similarities listening to you guys talk between y'all's world and medical professionals, right? Like you're talking about niching down. You don't have somebody who operates on shoulders also talking to you about brain surgery. And then you're talking about clients, patients. There's so many similarities between the two of those. I don't even think you guys, maybe even realize all those, your approach and everything as well too. So we'll dive into that. I definitely had another episode or, some short form content. We'd love to pop out there with you as well. But if anybody has any questions on this, I'll go ahead and put Greg's contact just directly in the show notes as well too. So you have no reason not to reach out to him or reach out to Chris. You don't want to ask me anything. I don't have any answers. But to be honest, I'm just really good at directing people somewhere else. I'm like the modern day Rolodex or Yellow Pages. So, Greg, thanks for joining us, man. We really appreciate
I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, this is great. Loved it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And if anybody listening to this again, check out the show notes. There's some resource links in there, and we will see you back here again next time on the Mr. R Show, brought to you by the MRR Institute.
You've been listening to the Mr. R Show, presented by the MRR Institute. For more content like this, be sure to check us out on YouTube for weekly expert tips. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast to stay updated on the latest strategies for scaling and modernizing your tax practice. Looking for more? Contact us at mrrinstitute.com for practice resources, coaching opportunities, and a peer-to-peer mastermind group. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
The content of this podcast does not constitute an offer of securities. Offerings can only be made through an offering memorandum, and you should carefully examine the risk factors and other information contained in the memorandum. The content provided is for educational purposes only. We encourage you to seek personalized investment advice from your financial professional. For all tax and legal advice, please consult your CPA or attorney. Investment advisory services are offered through Cabin Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cabin Securities, a registered broker-dealer.